This is Paige Morahan back again. Roberta Sonnino and I will be discussing the executive summary. Executive summary is a term that we coined over 20 years ago for the career document that is a functional resume, because a resume is not a common document used in academia, although it's common everywhere else. We selected this term for two reasons. First, it's common in our world to have an executive summary at the beginning of a report. Second, you can attach it, because of this, directly at the beginning of your lengthy CV as an executive summary that highlights your strengths and accomplishments succinctly and presents you in a way that makes these accomplishments explicit and thus stand out rather than being implicit and buried in your CV. To remind us of the strategic planning process, it starts with the raw data expressed as your stories of success. With the next step, you expanded the data as you mined these stories for the numerous nuggets of gold, the knowledge, skills, and attributes, which we often call KSAs, knowledge, skills, and attributes, that you had to use to reach your accomplishment. This was a divergence or broadening process to identify as many KSAs as appropriate for your PAR stories. After that explanation, you synthesize this wealth of information about yourself into strength themes. This began the distilling, consolidating, or convergence process. Then you expanded again and used these themes to develop customized PARs, which will allow you to showcase these strengths in different forms, such as your CV and executive summary, or on interviews. In this Unit 5, you'll prepare your executive summary so you stand out in job searches and promotion. Ultimately, you'll be able to achieve the goal of advancing your career with some additional topics covered in later units. You're now ready to explore the second of the three major documents needed to showcase your expertise and accomplishments, and showcase how your competencies fit with a particular position. In Unit 4, we described the Master CV, and using this to tailor your external CVs for particular situations. In this Unit 5, you'll prepare your executive summary. In a later unit, you'll learn how to craft a cover letter that matches your competencies and experiences to the needs of an internal or external job or promotion.
So the materials you're going to need for this are your completed PAR Stories of Success and Key Strengths or Themes worksheet, and some examples of executive summaries that you will find in the D-Learning Instructions Workbook Appendix. So what is an executive summary? In essence, the executive summary is a succinct synthesis of you that showcases how you fit with a particular career, job, or promotion objective. It is hand-tailored for each different purpose, as with your customized CV, and this usually requires simple cutting and pasting to reorder elements, so the best fit is at the top in each of the executive summary categories. With this definition, before we get into the details of preparing an executive summary, I will describe assignment 5.1 for you. We ask you to do a short reflection to put the executive summary into context of how you plan to use it. Think about your PAR-derived KSAs, your knowledge, skills, and attributes. Which of these are ones you really want to focus on using in the future? Review an ad or job posting that you are interested in, or the promotion criteria for the next step for you. Read the example executive summaries in the D-Learning Instructions Workbook document. Start thinking about your executive summary referring to your KSAs, job posting, and example executive summaries. And, going on to the next slide, think systematically about what is your objective. For you, the particular job, this is what most people focus on, and it's a necessary part. What position level is right for you given your experience? Does this position emphasize your strengths? the ones you enjoy using. Remember that you want a job where hopefully this makes up 50% of your job, so you have the energy to deal with the inevitable rest. Do you want broad management and supervisory responsibility? Maybe you want to focus on research and don't really aspire to a department chair position, even if you're qualified. Overall, do the functions, roles, and activities fit for you? Do they give you experience for subsequent career moves? And clarifying the position elements is not sufficient in strategic career planning. Equally important is the context. Regarding type, will you fit with a research-intensive school? Also, be realistic. Will you be competitive for such? And consider the size. Will you fit better with a small school that has a family-type culture, or a larger, more impersonal, and perhaps very competitive culture? And consider geography. Do you need to be near a metropolitan area to meet the needs of your family? Of course, consider resources. I know of a leader who interviewed for chair of a clinical department at a top school. She was clear that she wanted to be chair of a research-intensive department. She and the dean had a frank discussion in which he indicated that his vision for this particular clinical department was to be clinically excellent and financially productive, that the institution had prioritized its research resources to a few other clinical disciplines, so she withdrew from the search. The clearer you can get about such questions, the better you will be able to craft an executive summary that showcases your accomplishments, passion, and fit for that particular position in place. Take the time to aim before you fire. Now go ahead and pause the module so you can complete assignment 5.1. Now that you have that reflection in mind, let's deep dive into the executive summary. First, when do you use an executive summary? There are two major ways to use it. Probably the most common use of the executive summary is as a companion document to accompany a traditional external CV when applying for administrative leadership positions. It proves that you have the right experience to fit the job needs, so your application is not triaged out. This is particularly important for women and minorities. The organization Catalyst has research that shows men are hired on promise, while women and minorities are hired because they've done the job. Thus, you need to show that your accomplishments fit as closely as possible to the job needs. As a companion document, it accompanies a traditional external CV. Some searches only ask for a CV. In that case, you can use the executive summary as the first 2 pages of your CV. Or, if appropriate, you can submit both the executive summary and your detailed customized CV. The executive summary is also useful in networking and exploring new or novel positions and opportunities. It is a quick way to present yourself professionally and less formally than with a full CV. It is sometimes used alone for this purpose. It can also be used for informational interviews. Page has termed this time travel, where you interview someone, making it clear that you're not looking for a job, who is 5 to 10 years ahead of you in that particular job or field that you're possibly interested in. We will have a unit on this later to help the introverts who are uncomfortable about reaching out to do these types of interviews. The format of an executive summary leads with an objective for a specific position, followed by qualifications, supported by accomplishment statements. Depending on the purpose, it may include a succinct summary of specific educational training. For informational or networking interviews, list only the minimum that's useful and necessary. In using as a companion to a CV, it's not necessary to include education, since it's already in the CV, but you may include anything unusual or relevant to the situation that could get lost in a list on the CV. For example, extensive education abroad. In general, the executive summary should be brief, 2 to 3 pages. Remember, we are in the age of tweets. The specific details of each element will be discussed in the next slides. The next two slides show a typical format for an executive summary. Here we show an example for an educator. Remember, there are other examples in your packet. This is the only document in your packet that is titled. In the upper left header, upper left corner, write Executive Summary. This is so readers will not get confused thinking this is your entire CV. Notice there is then the objective, the qualifications, and then the accomplishment section. You can see now how good use will be made of your PARs in the accomplishments section. We caution you not to take these examples and edit. It is important that your executive summary reflects your own style, words, and phraseology. It has to be you. Now let's get into the nitty-gritty of writing an executive summary, going into the three sections. In the objective, you've considered what you want. You align it with what they want. It is written for the specific position you are applying for. It's tailored to their needs and details, what the employer is looking for. It is targeted to the advertised opportunity and may include keywords from the ad or position description. Note the sample objective below. We italicized the keywords in the ad that were used in the objective to demonstrate how you want to write your objective to make sure it shows the fit to meet their needs. Of course, you would not italicize in the actual executive summary. In the final sentence, note that the words collaboration and strategic planning are from this person's qualifications with evidence from the PAR statements. Here are more examples of objectives. Note that each is a mixture of 1. Words taken from the position description, again shown here in italics, and 2. Words that showcase qualifications that will be backed up with PAR stories. Now for the details of the qualifications section. This details your qualifications and readiness for the position based on similar roles and responsibilities you have already had. In this section, you tell what you are good at and summarize what you did using your skills. Your qualifications come directly from your PARS analysis. The next section, the accomplishments that support these qualifications, come from your CV and are explained in the PAR narrative form. More on that shortly. Remember, stories sell while facts just tell. So, to discuss qualification in further detail with examples. Often they are your strengths theme titles. This is why it's important for you to write them in your own language. There can be at least 3 variations, whichever fits you in the job you're seeking. A list, such as this, or the qualification section may be in a short paragraph rather than in a list like the first example. Note the special words that come from the strengths analysis. Responsible clinician, flexible with changing priorities, strategist, commitment to quality, navigate through complex issues, politically savvy. And note the last one. This individual has a disability that is immediately visible and felt it important to get that distraction out of the way immediately. In this third variation of the qualifications section, the individual has written a summary that combined qualifications and her accomplishments from her PAR result statements, rather than having the accomplishments in a separate section. The strategic career planning process indicated that this organization was very results-oriented, and the candidate wanted to showcase the essence of that right up front at the top of the executive summary. You can see from these examples, variations are fine, but each must be concise. And now we get to the all-important accomplishment statements. These are really short, customized PAR statements that are derived from your PAR work in Units 1 through 3. In a PAR statement, recall that P stands for the problem or opportunity or challenge or issue. Accomplishment statements are short, focusing on the A and the R of the PAR story. A is the action you took to solve or resolve the problem, and R is the result or outcome of benefit. These provide evidence that your qualifications are real. Important points about using PARs in executive summaries. Accomplishment statements are customized PAR statements as highlighted on the last slide, short 2 to 3 line statements, and they often start with an action verb. Remember, make the R as quantitative as possible. So for example, dollars brought in or saved, number or percent students, publications, patients served, staff retained, patient satisfaction scores, accreditation metrics, number of years that the program was sustained and continued, or a citation index. Now we're going to talk about the organization of accomplishments. In this example of a portion of an accomplishments section, the writer chose to focus on one large accomplishment. The problem or opportunity here was a vision to build a women in medicine office into a comprehensive resource for leadership development. The writer then provides evidence in a list of short A plus R accomplishment statements that provide evidence for different qualifications. For example, the actions, envisioned, developed conceptual model, and recruited and trained faculty. Alternatively, you could organize by having key skills be the top bullets with 1 or 2 examples in each. This might be more appropriate if your job experience is very broad. The choice of organization is up to you to fit your style and purpose of showcasing your accomplishments that fit the position you are seeking. You might also reorder some of the accomplishments up or down in priority, or leave some out deliberately to emphasize others. And for the R's, the results, make them stand out. Remember, we are scientists. Note the various ways the person showed in the results quantitatively. Recruited over 60 faculty, programs for over 400 faculty and staff, increased from 150 to 320 applications, obtained a $200,000 grant, and also qualitatively in ways that could be amplified upon in PAR stories in an interview, such as impact in 30 different institutions. Now let's look at an example that starts with the action, the A of the PAR story. In other words, the action utilizing an active verb. In this example, formatted as bullet points, notice the A's, launched, and chaired. It then follows with the R of the PAR story, the result. Notice in this example, serving 250 youth, resulting in full 7-year accreditation. So where is the P, problem, opportunity, challenge of your PAR story? You can use this in interviews to tell your story about bulleted accomplishments and set the stage for further dialogue. So here we have some additional references. How to use the executive summary when applying for positions. This was published in Academic Physician and Scientist. Converting a curriculum vitae to a resume. Use of the executive summary. This comes from Career Planning and Adult Development, the journal. So now we believe you are ready to draft your own executive summary. For the first part of assignment 5.2a, prepare a draft executive summary using your strengths themes, PAR statements, and your reflections on the positions desired. There are examples available to refer to. You will need to complete Part A first before moving on to the rest of the assignment. After you have completed Part A, you can then move to Part B. Once you have a draft, it is very useful to get someone in your field to read it. This is Part 2 of the assignment. Have someone review your executive summary and ask them, where were they most impressed or intrigued? What was unclear or appeared jargony to them? What do they know about you that they believe you may have omitted or given short shrift to? Then revise based on their feedback.